Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Welcome back, friends. Welcome back, enemies. I don't care. I welcome all viewers. This is a weird week, and I'll go ahead and tell you that now. Because I started last week. I started this week last week. Most of you people waited until this week to start this week. I started this week last week. Friday, to be exact. I finished up that UFO, and I still had plenty of day left. So what did I decide to do? Well, I decided to dig out something that I had. I was on a custom replicas binge at that point, because having just finished the Enterprise, I was reminded of another custom replicas kit that I had in my possession that was squirreled away in a box in a corner in the dark and the deep. So I pulled that out. I wanted to knock it out pretty quick. It's thematic. It goes with the rest of it. And so I started that on Friday. And cleaning up parts, which is always my favorite thing to do. Just looking at the parts, figuring out how they go, cleaning them up. That's my favorite part of kit building. And so I started on that. And then I had another project over the weekend that I really wanted to get to, which was, you know, it's not model building, it's the thing that comes because you build so many models, and that is shelf space. You got to make shelf space. And I had this design in my head for a shelf for the back wall of the display room that went above the posters and the lightsabers, went out, came down, and then went out to the corners of the room. So you want to go like that. So I had gotten the measurements and drawn everything up and took my little ruler out and figured out where the joints needed to be and all that kind of stuff. So I did that over the weekend as well. On Saturday, after being drafted into helping family with more trim work over my sister's house. I got back, had all the tools out anyway, so I figured I'd go ahead. This was the time to go ahead and get that shelf knocked out. So I bought the wood, made my measurements, cut my joints, or cut my lengths, and painted it black. I saw some raw wood, and I had to paint it black. So I did that on Saturday, and then Sunday I actually got up on the wall and put it there. Now, it's not as simple as you think, because, oh no, I have to pull everything away from that wall to get to it to put the shelf up. So away from the wall comes the chair, out go the mannequins, out go the chairs, out go everything. I had to clear it out, because I know me, and if you know me like I knew me, you would never stop smacking me. I know me, and I would put a shelf up and it would fall and hit several models on its way down. So I had to make sure everything was cleared off of that. Cleared as much as I could, clear away to give me room to roam, because it was a shelf that had to go the whole length of the room, and I'm only one guy. So I couldn't put it all up at one time. I had to put it up in pieces. Well, that's what I did on Sunday, and again, you'll see this, because whatever video I shot, I'm going to splice in after this introduction and kind of get you up to speed, and then you'll know the kit that I'm working on, and then you'll see what the shelf looks like. And then that will be how the rest of the week progresses, is putting the room back together, which is always fun, because it gave me a choice or a reason to rethink some stuff. And when I put that shelf up, what you're not seeing, because the shelf immediately fills back up and the room doesn't look like there's any less models in it, but what you're not seeing is the breathing room. All of the models now have breathing room around them, because they're not so bunched together on shelves, on the existing shelves or on the cabinets or whatever. I could spread them out. And that's pretty much how the week is going. So let's, excuse me, let me splice in last Friday's work up until the work I did Saturday and Sunday, and then we'll catch you back up to where I'm at this morning, this being Monday. Okay, I'm introducing you to this weekend's quick build. I think I can pretty much get all this done in a weekend. It is the Custom Replicas D7. Now, what makes this so quick is that it's very few parts, no lighting. Jim Key had had called this a 300 scale. He's calling this the size of the filming miniature, and I will be painting it in the 3-color pattern, the gray and then the jade green and the lighter green colors. It comes with this funky base. Now, you know how I love a funky base, but this is, to me, is too much. This to me reminds me of those really stupid Halloween costumes that you used to see as a kid, where the costume of Batman has a picture of Batman on the front of the costume instead of just the bat symbol. If I mean, this is what this says. It says Klingon D7 from Star Trek. If you can't tell what this model is by looking at it, this ain't going to help you. I can understand somebody wanting to... it's very obvious that he's very proud of his laser cutter, and he is wanting to play with it and show it off and all that. And you may be trying to make up for the fact that the model itself is not all that challenging, or it's not all that intricate. But this is just, that's, to me, it's a waste. I am going to be keeping this much of it, the 2 parts of the base, the symbol here. These were all nicely laser cut on the acrylic, but I am using one of my stock and trade favorite wooden bases, and I will just do something like, well, grab all of this at one time. You can see I've got all these parts that fall over. Okay, it's going to look like this when it's done. I'm just going to have that raised like that with the stick, and here you can see how it is kind of the cultural brother of the big Enterprise, because it's got this same type of metal base with a tube cut at an angle, but it's going to be something like that. That's going to be the base for this, and it's going to fit in that nice empty corner on my platform that people were wondering about, the empty corner. Like I said, not a lot of pieces, should go together pretty quickly. Cleaning it is the hardest word. Getting the whatever resin seams cleaned, this is what makes it different from the other Jim Key Custom Replicas kit, is that this is all resin and none of it is fiberglass or well, there are brass reinforcements for the wings, or for the big yeah, I guess you would call those wings. But other than that, oh, there's also a very heavy reinforcement baked into the neck of the boom here going out to the soup spoon. So that's kind of heavy, and that's going to keep everything kind of bounced. But this is basically where we're going to, what I'm going to be doing this weekend, and it's not going to take a whole bunch of time. Here's a good example. This is all one piece. In most model making, this would be at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, maybe 6. This is all one piece, so it's not going to take a lot to get it put together. This is all one piece. Again, there'll be no lighting in this, so no sense to do anything more than make it look like a good showpiece. The fit on these parts are beautiful. There's some flash that needs to be cleaned off. There'll be some puttying that needs to be done, but by and large everything is in wonderful shape. This fits down here very tight, and this fits on here very tight, but following the instructions, I'm going to take this easy, go step by step, and do it pretty quickly. And you can tell just by the way the instructions are laid out that, let me move my soda, that these are the same fine people that brought you the refit, or the 66-inch Enterprise, because it's all laid out the same exact way, down to the fonts and all of that. So one nice bonus of all of this was this beautiful, suitable for framing print that came with it. Again, I think he's trying to add value for the fact that the kit itself is no great impossibility to make. But look at that. That's a very nice. Very nice artwork there. Welcome back. It is Friday afternoon, and I am working on my weekend build of this custom replica D7. Done the one thing that they told me to do. Well, I've done a lot of things that they told me to do, but as far as reinforcing the inside, and that is to put these metal rods, brass rods, I chose to swap out. They had two brass rods, or two brass tubes. I chose to swap this out for a steel rod to make it that much stronger, stronger. And really what they're going to do now is just slap a bunch of epoxy on them to hold them in place. And I've just checked the fit with the top to make sure the top will fit down over it just nice. I've tapped out screws for all of the major builds, screws for this, screws to go into the engines and the nacelles to help them in place. But the first thing you need to do is get these guys secured and epoxied in. Oh, here we are. I have slathered the epoxy in, and I've got the clamps on there just to hold it in place while that epoxy cures. The instructions say to use 5-minute epoxy, but I figured I'm in no rush. I went ahead and used 15-minute epoxy. Why? Well, I had it easy to hand, and plus the 5-minute epoxy I have is fairly brand new, and the 15-minute epoxy I have is fairly old, and it's starting to yellow really badly. And in this particular place, you know, I don't care if it's yellow because it's, you know, it's on resin, which is already yellow, plus it's not going to be lit, so you're never going to see this. So why not use up the yellowed epoxy and save the clear, fresh epoxy for something where it might make a difference? So I'm just catching the little spills and the runs and goosing them back up into place where they can do the most good. And this is where we'll let this sit, and we'll see if we want to get anything else done today. It would be nice to have the epoxy curing overnight for the major builds. Now, the only other major builds left to do would be to go ahead and put the nacelles on and the boom on the front, and I don't know if I want to go ahead and do that now or do that today or wait until some point tomorrow. So it just depends on how fast I want to get done with this thing, because really it's more of a painting thing than it is a building thing. Morning, it's Saturday, and work continues on the Custom Replicas Classic D7. These joints have sat up overnight. They are good and solid, and today I've got a ton of errands to run and tasks to do and things I gotta get done. So I wanted to get an early start, and I can set up this neck joint to be curing while I am gone, so I can be taking use of the time. Now, the neck joint on the D7, this is its very own version of the pylons if you're building an Enterprise, because it is the one joint, no matter which kit you have built, and I have built practically every kit of the D7 that the world has to offer, and this is always the problem joint, because if you get it wrong, then it starts to droop. And every kit that I've seen also has its own unique way of dealing with it. This Custom Replicas kit has a couple of brass rods that have been cast into the resin, and it's got an interesting pocket back here. Now, it's also got some reinforcing screws to go through here, and then it's got screws to hold this plate down. So between the time that it gets glued and screwed, it should be fairly well secured. So let's take the screws back out of here that I had so that I wouldn't lose them. Take the screws off of this, pop in some 5-minute epoxy, and screw it all back down and see how she looks. Okay, with 7 screws into it, 4 holding the top plate down and 3 holding it in from the back, I feel that this should constitute the end of the heavy metal portion of our build. All of the structural work and all of the screws and Reinforcing rods are in. Let that cure for a good few hours. I'm going to clean this joint out a little bit here, just to get the neggies out, and we'll be good to go. The last big challenge is going to be getting this top on, because there's so many mating surfaces that it has to come down to. So it's a matter of, it's a good tight fit, but it, you know, nothing that couldn't still use some clamping. So we'll get the clamps out later today and do the attaching, but I'm going to leave this part off while I paint, because that's such a nice tight joint when it is put back that I can do all of the fiddly detail painting on the Cobra head there, and then attach it later. But this is looking good. Ooh, I need to clean that up. See you later.
I don't know how you spent your weekend, but I spent mine putting this shelf up. This is Sunday afternoon. I just finished getting it mounted. Now, yesterday I cut all the parts and painted them. Today I put in all the molly bolts into the drywall and mounted the shelves. Now the trick is going to be putting things up there that I'm not going to want to get to for a while, because it is very high and there's a captain's chair in front of it. So many things have to be moved to accommodate any changes there. But it's going to give me all kinds of shelf space for things that I can bring out of the other room. I'm really eager to create a 2001 corner there. So I've got a couple of satellite kits that, or bomb platform kits that I've had in the other room forever, and I may think about bringing those in. The top was going to be my sub shelf, and I think I'm going to do the Nautilus that I brought back from IPMS, and the Yamato, and the Seaview. I think will all fit up there. I'm not sure. And then the other shelf here is going to be some of the Marvel characters and comic book characters that I can take from other places in the house and in the room and kind of reapportion them. And that gives me one more shelf space over this window for if all the subs won't fit there, then the other sub will fit there because it's long and skinny. Okay, I'm starting to repopulate the shelves, working from the roof or from the ceiling on down. And you'll see that box right there. That is the Nautilus kit that I brought back from IPMS Nationals. I am reserving it. That's sort of what I did here with the space for the Enterprise. I reserved that space, knowing that that kit, when I build it, will go right there. So I know it's going to take up that much space, and I can stuff the shelves accordingly around it. I'm way happy with my 2001 niche. I've got a HAL wall unit to mount right there that I haven't got to yet. But I'm pooped. This is a lot of work and moving things around and lugging and tugging. I've got my superheroes. I got my Iron Men up on the doing the little dance routine, doing the Stop in the Name of Love chorus routine in that diminishing shelf. And I am thinking about how to accommodate the rest of everything else. And here we are on the D7. All of the reinforcements have had the whole weekend to cure. Doing a little bit of spot puttying here on the neck joint. This thing is solid as a rock. It is solid as the proverbial rock upon which I will build my entire rest of the ship. There is a thing I've noticed on this back here, is that for some reason this corner here is high and does not want to meet. So once I get that on there, we'll figure out what it is that's causing the ruckus and get that taken care of. And then it's just going to be a question of painting, because all of this is, there's no wiring, there's very few decals, but the decals that are here are dry transfers, and I don't know how well they've aged. I'm prepared to repaint all of the insignia on here if I need to. I need to make up some
templates for those, but it's not tough. They're not complicated. It's just a question of seeing whether or not the dry transfers have aged well enough. Alrighty, this sea of clamps should look familiar to y'all. This represents progress, believe it or not. Yeah, I've got the piece on there. I had to sand down the inner ridge pretty much all the way around it, but as long as the outer lip touches, that's all I really need. And we're going to let this sit for a few hours and then pull the masks off, or pull the clamps off, and then clean off the overspill of the epoxy. Back, it is Tuesday, and work continues on the classic D7 here. And this goes to point out all of the things that round 2 got so right on their Katinga that frankly crops up to bite you when you're doing a classic D7, and that is getting all of these beautiful angles and square edges and pointy points to come out nice and even. Now, I basically had to rebuild this corner here because of a not just a bubble in the casting, but because it's, you know, it's resin. It was the first place it took a little bit of damage. I binged it against something when I was working it, and it knocked that corner down. So that's the thing about resin kits, is they're not as hardy as styrene, and you have to treat them a little bit kinder. But all of these angles and all of these flat surfaces now, when you've got a Katinga, you've got surface detail that kind of covers some of that up, and the seam around here isn't nakedly exposed like it is on the classic D7. So got it, in order to keep this clean, and clean is the name of the game on this one, to keep them clean, I got to point them up and get rid of any little bit of sanding waviness. Now, this is the angle, like I think I mentioned this before. This angle here is as much of a problem on D7s as well, I think I know what I said. I said it was the droop of the boom here is the big problem on the D7, and it kind of is. But getting this angle just so is important. It's an important look, and it's something that on the 350 Katinga they made all one part to avoid that problem, which was great. But here it was a separate part. It had screws that went into it to kind of pulled it right up into the correct angle, but there's some difference right to left as to whether or not they're even. I think I got them cooked out. I think I got it cooked out well enough to where the engines are at the same canted angle in, but it looks like this one is bent in just a little bit more, and I put the contour gauge on it, and no, both of those angles are the same. It's just how it looks. It's basically how the kit was designed, so I gotta stick with that. I was never a big fan of the D7 engines canting in like that. I always thought they looked better when they were straight down, but that's never how they were supposed to be. Although when I was a kid, I built them wrong several times so that the engines were straight up and down, but they should not be. But it's a question of getting all of these getting this seam cleaned up the whole way, and it was something they did a masterful job on the round 2 350 Katinga. When you have, you know, styrene injected parts, you can engineer that and close up that gap, but when you're dealing with resin, sometimes you don't get to have that close or precise of a seam. So it's something that needs to be worked out. But another day or so of this, I should be ready to put some final paint on it. Like I said, I'm cleaning up, and I am puttying some angles. You can see the big ugly back there of putty. So let that dry, and things getting to be heavy as sin, so I can't be waving it around with one arm. And here are the parts that are needed for the base. The 3 parts of the, well, the 4 parts really of the the Klingon symbol plus a gold outlined shape here. And the idea is that the gold will go on the black base. The black wooden base will look like this. It will have a gold shape on it, and then you have, I shouldn't be touching this because it isn't quite dry yet. You have the ivory creamy piece in there. You have the red up there. You have the satin or the jade green here. And then you have the black. And it all goes together like that. It's going to look pretty sharp when it's done, I think. Okay, what you see here is a result of just desperation to see some color on this thing. I've been sanding and puttying and gray sanding, you know, spraying gray primer on it and puttying and sanding for 3 days straight now, and I want to see some green. So this is a color called Tide Pool, Krylon Tide Pool. It's actually going to be the lighter of the two greens because I'm going to go with this satin jade. Jade is a color for the underside here, and that's pretty much it. Or the nacelles and the underside. The top will get the gray, and I picked out a gray, which is going to be your basic Rust-Oleum glossy enamel gray. It's got that cool shift in it. It's a cool gray, not a warm gray. So it'll do what I want it to do, and that'll be on the top of the back end here, and the shuttle bay, and the top of the Cobra head. But this, I need to, this will be gray here, but it's green all the way around. The kidney bean is green, and the little tower there is green. But I need to put a coat of the primer on there first to get it ready to paint. And then it's going to get some of this Tide Pool, because that is the lighter color that I'm going to end up using. It goes on really ugly. I got to tell you, I put it on there and I cringed, and I wanted to immediately wipe it off because it was going on in spits, and it was going on real thick. And that's the thing about some of these Krylon primer and color all-in-ones, is that they're too dang thick. I could do my own priming, thank you very much, Krylon. Give me just the paint. I don't need to have the paint and the primer in one. So there. But that, once that dries up, it is drying in really nice, and it is, because it is so thick, it's filling in scratches and whatnot, so I kind of like that. But it's a nightmare when it's going on. I just have to close my eyes and you know, cross my fingers and hope it'll all come out in the wash. But here is here's the color of the jade, so you can see the two different colors of green. There you can see that's a little bit darker. But that's going to be from this line back. It's going to be the jade color. But finally got that on, let that dry. Now I just need to let the rest of it catch up to it. Alrighty, just doing a little bit of cleanup work on the base. I epoxied in this aluminum tube, and I'm just making sure that it is sitting up square and all that, so that the ship will sit on it square and all that. So here we have the shipper. I'm loving this color. I really had to reappraise the that paint. It just went on like a nightmare, like I said, and I should have given it the benefit of the doubt. So I've got the same paint on the kidney bean and the other details for the top, but it's drying in the other room, and hopefully by the morning I should be able to give the whole bottom of this the jade color, and that will only leave the dark gray for the top. Good morning, it's Thursday, welcome back. One of the very core basic truths I have discovered in my life is this. Sit back, you can write this one down in the Book of Lou. It is true for all times. I have found that anything worth doing is worth doing twice. I don't know of any part of this kit that I have not touched numerous times, and I don't know why. Things are failing on an epic level. Two paints that I have used hundreds of times before
are suddenly reacting against each other now and causing alligator skin. Drill bits that have drilled a hole a certain size forever and ever are for some reason drilling a different sized hole. It's just, and I have to blame operator error on 100% of it because I don't know why. But this is not the second base that I have built, but it is the second time I had to drill a new hole, put the post in again. I've painted each of these guys numerous times because for some reason, whether I'm not shaking the can or what, but the paint wasn't drying and I could stick a big old thumbprint in the middle of it. Or, like I said, one coat would be fine. The next coat I would put down with alligator over top of it, which is no bueno. So I think I've got this to a point where I'm happy to let it rest and lay and otherwise cure. I'm going to come back a little bit later with the adhesive and, well, see, I'm not even going to mess with it. There you go. And stick these down. But for some odd reason, they were not cooperating with me. And that extends over into the ship itself, where hopefully I am going to be getting a good coat of the jade on the bottom of the ship today. Okay, I've got the areas taped off that I want to protect, and I'm getting ready to put the jade color on, which starts here and encapsulates both nacelles and does the underside. And I'm going to try and see if I can get away with doing this just once. There's a bit of positive news. I'm actually liking how the satin has laid down nice and flat. It's a satin jade color, but it's laying down nice and evenly, and you can see the difference between the two colors here, hopefully with the yellow tape in the middle acting as a mask, but hopefully you can tell the difference between, not only is this because it's glossy, the whole thing will be flattened when it's all done, but I'm really getting that nice even excellent tone here that I was looking for. So now it's time to put this back, and the only thing I've got left to do is the gray that goes on the top side and on the shuttle bay attachment, which I have not put on there yet. It's Thursday afternoon and we're rounding third base, get ready to come into home stretch here. I just did the silver bit of paint there on the fins. There's a gold highlight that has to be painted on top of that, but the silver's done. I've got the nice crisp clean lines between the gray and the jade green. There's a little bit of it of the gray to touch up. It's a little bit up here that's kind of weak. It's not as flat and even as the rest of it, so I want to even that up. I've been doing some touchy work on the Cobra head here. I am working on this, making sure that the green and the grays are well and truly separated. I've got the silver painted in on the sides there and on top of that. Let's see, I've got to do the red on the top of the kidney bean. That's the last bit that needs to be painted on that, and that needs to be done by hand, obviously. And we're down to letting this dry overnight and the possibility of hitting it tomorrow with the dry transfers and being done with it. Now there's some hand painting on the silver that has to happen back here, and then there's some Mylar tape that has to go on this thing of all things, but I think I can do both of those tomorrow and still be in good shape to finish it up. But here you can see the two different colors of green, the tide pool and the jade. There's a bit of the gray that has to go on the tops of these, and I think on the top of this shape, that I'm probably going to have to either decant and spray with the airbrush or just paint by hand. Ooh, it's going to take some masking to take care of those. Good morning, it's Friday, it's the last work day of the week, and you know, cross fingers, you might be finished today, who knows. Started the scary part, which are the dry transfers.
And they're scary because A, these dry transfers are several years old, and B, I've never had really good luck with dry transfers in the first place because unlike decals, once they're down, they ain't moving. So you got to have it right and secure and in the exact spot before you start doing the rubbing, or else you've just shot your transfer. Like I said, once it's down, it ain't moving, and you can't slide it around like a decal. But I've got the, I figured these would be the easiest to do first because they are flat. They don't have to go around a particular contour. I mean, they have to do the curve, but I don't have to put them, or this is going to be the really scary one, trying to wrap it around that. I may have to cut those into smaller sections to do them. But it recommends burnishing them down, which I've done, and then hitting it with the flat coat to seal it in, which I think I'm going to do now as well. But I wanted to leave this top part off specifically for this reason, so that I could get to that easily, more easily than if it were in place. So let me go hit this with a flat coat, and we'll see how that goes. And then we are, oh, since the last time you saw, I've glued the grills in. This is still not stuck down, but I've glued the grills in. I've painted the detail on the top here. Now that detail is evident in the old Smithsonian unpacking pictures. And I think that's where I got that bit of reference from. So that's where I decided to keep that. I've got to put the silver mylar on, but I am going to wait until after I have put the flat coat over everything before I put that down, because they recommend putting it down first and then flat coating, or then protecting them and then flat coating. Oh, why not just wait? We'll have to see how adhesive those are. If the adhesive on those have gone bad, then I will just paint silver over top of those on top of the flat coat, which will still give me the shininess that I'm looking for. Let's see, what else? Oh, I've got to do some silver touch up on the nacelles. Little bits here and there, little touchies today. So let's get a flat coat on this hood and see how it looks. Alrighty now, I love it. I think it came out great. A little bit of flat coat on here. Now the great thing about dry transfers, and like I said, I've had limited experience with them, but the great thing about them is they are dry. They do not need to be babied for the first 10 hours that you put them on like regular decals do. You have to wet the surface. You've got to slide it in place. You have to get it just right, blot it off, and then leave it alone for 10 hours so that you can I'm sorry, I'm overstating. You have to leave it alone and let it dry before you can come back and put any sort of overcoat on it, because it will wrinkle up. Well, you don't have to do that. There is no wait time on dry transfers, and I can zoom all the way in on those, and you don't see any carrier film. You don't see any problems like that, and it's still not as good as paint. Paint is still best, but I could never paint those empty circles like that. I could maybe paint those guys, but I could not paint those guys. So when entirely possible, I still recommend painting, but dry transfers, if you use them freshly enough, do seem to be the way to go on these. Of course, like I said, I've just done the really easy ones, so we'll have to see how well it goes on the ones that go on the compound curves of the bulb. Okay, I'm doing just the tiniest of touch-up around the edges of these things that once I held it up to the light, I saw that was needed. It was hidden in shadow before, but now I can tell that it needs to be touched up with the gray. And the gray is not the same gray as I am spraying in the large can, but it does, when I put the flat coat on it, it does conform to the same color. This is the neutral gray from Tamiya, and it happens to shake out to be the same color of gray once it has been sprayed as the other gray. So which is the rattle can. So I'm just going around and touching the edges of things. And now I'm left with this quandary. There is on the filming model a series of beads, and they're about the size of this pin, but they are white. This is just happens to be a perfect match for the jade green, but one of them is destined to go there. And what they are, or what they were on the filming model, were the places where they hung the wires, because unlike the Enterprise, which was stuck on a post and the camera zoomed around the post, the Klingon ships were actually flown on wires. They were hung just like, you know, the old Jupiter 2. They were hung in their fine tradition of Flash Gordon. They were hung on wires. And there was a wire here. Then there were wires in the back corners here and on that side. So there were 3 on the top, and there was also 1 on the underside here. And I'm imagining they held tension so that you could hold that straight. If you pulled that tight and you pulled that tight, then you wouldn't get this wavering back and forth. So my question is, do I recreate those? Now there are spots on the kit for you to do that. That's where that one would go. And what you're meant to do is take a pin vise and drill down the size of that pin. And oddly enough, you're using a pin on a pin vise. I just made that connection. You snip that off about there, and then you glue it into place down in that hole. And then you paint them. I don't want to mess around with white paint, so I'm going to go out and do some shopping, because I have to get some black felt for the bottom of the base anyway. So I'm going to check Michael's while I'm there. And if they have any white-headed pins like this that are already white and I don't have to paint, then I'm going to try it. I'm going to pick them. I'm going to pick up a box and do that. But if I can't find white, then I'm not going to do it at all, because, like I said, I don't want to have to paint that. Alrighty, the detail work continues, and I pulled out these ever so old rolls of chart pack Mylar that have come with the kit. And I am putting them in between the fins here. Maybe you can see them. I've already flat coated this, and the tape seems to be sticking fine to the flat coat. But there, you can, if I catch the light, there you go. Catches the light, you can see that in between these grills is there. You can see it real good. There is the silver tape, and it's just wide enough. The space is just wide enough to run this stick down to burnish them into place. So I'm putting them in along and then trimming tops and bottoms. And then I'll use the same tape on some of the other silver accents on the neck predominantly. And like I said, we're just going around and round in ever decreasing circles to do up some of these detail works. Okay, I'm getting ready to put down the big, or one of the big logos. And so get the camera right on top of it, trying to do better camera work. These ones here did not go gentle into that good night. They did not go down very easily, so I really had to push down. The black ones, the ones that are the black ink only, seem to be working fine. It's this heavier ivory tone that is giving me the problem. So I've got this thing taped down, but I'm going to really have to scrub on it to get it to work. We'll see how. I'm glad that there's looks like there is at least one extra of that, because there's this one, there's the one that goes on the underside, and I've got 2 left. So hopefully I can afford to screw one up, even though I'm trying not to do that. And there are extras of these just in case as well. So wish me luck. I'm going to try scrubbing this guy down. Well, that did not go down easily or smoothly. So what I'm going to do is do the last one here on the other side, the last of the cream colored ones, and then get a quick coat of flat over top of that to seal those guys down, because they are delicate and I don't want to risk bumping those or peeling those up when it comes time to do the other ones. So that will be the last. I don't know whether it's the gray paint that going down on the finish of the gray paint is the problem. It's not as smooth as the light green paint, so maybe that could be the issue. But I'm going to be taking good care to do the other one and then run out and get a quick flat coat over them. Well, it looks like I'm not going to be finishing this Klingon ship a minute too soon, because I've got mail call and it's a box from Steve, and I believe I know what this is. So we're going to open it up. And it's going to be what we're building next week, I can almost guarantee you. Come on. How come people I see on YouTube videos can do this stuff one-handed so much easier than I can? It's not fair. And there it is, kids. Not one, but two. Two Enterprise kits. Yay, brother. Heading out to Eden. And again, let me do a double check. No, they've got the right decals on it. It's got a bit of wallpaper decaling. But we will see what we will see. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we will be building next week. I probably will cheat and start on it this weekend, and then build the other one for the video. Who knows? But yay. Okay, putting this aside. Well, I can tell you right off the bat, it's another potato chip model. This is the box. These are all the parts that make up the ship sitting in the box. And yes, that's about 3 inches too tall. But one thing I will tell you, they've finally got it right. They've put the decals on blue paper so that you can see the white windows. What a novel concept. Congratulations. They got around to it. they did. Literally. I'm sorry. I just realized what I said. They got around to it. Maybe that's what round 2 stands for. We'll get around to it eventually. So yeah, this is looking fun. And there's enough clear bits in here that we can make a mask set for it. I'm pretty confident of that fact. And of course we will light it. But back to the regularly scheduled build in progress. Okay, I've got the round of windows on the head, and it will not stand up to close scrutiny. But you try wrapping square windows around a bulb like that and see how well you do. Getting it right on the first shot, because you can't move them around once you've got them in place. You just try it. There's not a lot I can do about that, I'm afraid, other than scraping them all off and painting them on, which I'm not at this point ready to do. And I certainly couldn't do those ones. But there you go. Okay, a quick coat of flat on this to lock them in. Okay, I just did the last bit of construction. I glued down the top of the Cobra head, and I glued down the shuttle bay / impulse engine / whatever this is. Shuttle bay mostly. But I've got them glued down. Time to walk away. I've got a flat coat over everything. Still want to touch up a couple tiny things, touchy, but that's 98.3% done, maybe closer to 99. Still a couple little tiny things I want to do. But it's time to go get some lunch, maybe. Maybe go get some lunch and run out. And I still have to get the felt for the base. Decided not to do. Well, no, I haven't. I haven't quite decided whether or not I'm going to do the little hanging pins. Okay, just finishing up the base here. I've gotten back from Michael's and got the felt on the bottom. Got the insignia nailed down. It wanted to buck up a little bit, but some super glue persuaded it back down. And now the last thing to do is to mount the ship on the base. There is some black touch-up that I need to do, some black paint touch-up. So I think I'm going to do that first. Just a little bit of
where the fingerprints showed up and some places where I didn't quite get the finish that I wanted. So let me take care of that first. Okay, I'm back with the final touches on the D7, and that's what that bead looks like. I just took one of these long pins that I've come back from the store with, snipped it a little bit, drilled out that hole and put it down there. And this is what the other ones would look like. Let me get a white one there. This is what that would look like back here. I'm going to do it. I kind of like it. It's a special, as many D7s as I've built in my life, this will be the first time I've ever put these on. And I think it makes this kit unique, the fact that they even bothered to include them in the first place. But yeah, I see nothing wrong with that, so I'm going to put these in place. And there you go. The little beads are there. The little hanging, they're only decorative. They won't support any weight. I wouldn't dare try to hang this heavy kit from them, but they are there to commemorate how the ship was filmed. Ta-da. Okay, we are darn close. I think we're done. I think outside of, and when I say doing little tiny touchies, I sometimes will come back weeks later and do the little touchies, because while I'm in the thick of it, for lack of a better term, I can get carried away with stuff. I can overcompensate. I can think of, because I'm remembering what it looks like, I can overreact and put weathering down that is too dark, or, things like that. So I have found that it's always best, particularly if I'm coming back and touching up the paint on something, is to give it some time. Time wounds all heals, they say. What that will allow me to do is come back and look at it in the cold light of day and say, is it really that bad? Does it really need touching up? Or am I just remembering it in the heat of battle? So this is going to sit. It's done for all intents and purposes. It is done. And then I may come back to this in a month or two and take another hard critical look at it and say, okay, yeah, now that I've had time to think about it, I really do want to come back and touch some stuff up. It's just not, I'm not trying to get this done for a show. It's not due to be displayed anywhere other than my display room. If I were working on this on a deadline for a show, I would, follow it all the way down to the end of the goal line, do the final touches and all of that. But for where it is now and for what I want out of it, it's done. And yeah, there'll always be some improving that I could do. And that kind of goes, you've heard me talk about this in the past, where if I'm going to take something to Wonderfest, I'll pull it out like the month ahead of time and see if there's any touching up that needs to be done. That's the kind of time that I would go back to this and take a long look at it and say, okay, do I really need to fix this? Is it still bothering me? That kind of stuff. So none of that happens today. For what I want out of this kit, it is done. So I am going to leave it as it sits. And then the last thing I'm going to do is attach it to the top post on that base. And I may have to, I resist the idea of actually gluing it down to that base, because then you run the risk of running into problems if you have to transport it. It's so much easier to be able to pick it up off the base to transport it. And since there is no wiring in this, there's no lighting, I don't need to attach it to the base. So it's going to be a question of how well it's going to sit balance-wise on the base as to whether or not I'm going to end up puttying it down. Okay, this is a tale of two sets of veins here. This is what it looks like if you put the Mylar down and then you spray the flat over them. This is what the Mylar looks like if you don't spray or if you replace them after you've sprayed the flat on them. Since I had enough left over, I decided to go ahead and replace them, and I'll do it on the same side there. They just look too dull, and I'm glad that I did not put any flat, or that I flat coated this before I put these in, because I would hate to have to go back inside there and pull those all out. You can see the reflection there. So now I just need to cut the new ones and put them on that side. I've got something going on with this base that needs a little bit of explanation. I don't think that the pole that was provided in the kit is strong enough or beefy enough. Because what's happening is, even though I've got this epoxied in to the receptacle, the hole that the post goes in, as soon as I move this away, you can see how much it drops. And I think that's just going to end up sagging more and more over time. Even though I tried to fill that solidly with the epoxy putty, I don't think it's going to end up doing the job. So I may end up cutting a clear acrylic rod and putting it underneath here so that I could make a little cradle there to act as a support. Now it's not that the boom is sagging, it's not that the head is sagging off of this, it's that the whole ship is going like this off of the base, because I don't think the support in here was engineered strongly enough. It would have been nice if it was something that had actually screwed to the boom going that way. That would have been nice if I could have put some sort of metal angle bracket on it that could have been, dealt with through here. Like if you could take this off and have access to that bracket and really bolt those two things together, that really would have done the trick. But I think I'm going to end up, the easiest solution is to go ahead and make some sort of cradle out here on an acrylic rod, clear acrylic rod, and then just run that to the ground. There you go. That's about as low impact as I could get. I got just a piece of acrylic rod here with some felt on the top and the bottom. Just have to square those up. But I think that will take care of the pressure on the base. So let me just go back now and finish that. And there you go. The D7 is in its place of honor on the pedestal with the other classic Trek ships. The beautiful shuttle from Carwin Morris. Of course, the big Enterprise. Something I've had in the other room, in the living room for years now, but have just brought out, which is the, it's not, I guess it'd be the 172nd Botany Bay. It's the Scott Alexander Botany Bay. It's made to be in the same scale as the 66-inch Enterprise. It is twice the size of the 350 Botany Bay. And here you have the D7, which Jim Key has purported to be the size, the exact one-to-one size of the filming miniature, which is, he's scaled it at a 1/300th. And then you have the 1/350th Katinga. So now we have happy ships on a happy pedestal. And you can see some of the other work that I did this week, which was to put these shelves up. There's a clear shelf there that is new, and the clear shelf there that is new, and I was able to free up space in other places in the house by putting up additional shelves. I could take ships off of clogged up shelves and move them about. And of course there is the main shelf that I did this week, all nicely filled up with that box there that is the Nautilus. And that's going to bring us to the end of this week. Two fairly semi-related projects. Getting that big D7 built clears off some shelf space, and putting up new shelves clears off some shelf space. So
sometimes you got to build, sometimes you got to make room to build more. And that's what this week was all about. Next week I am going to be all Enterprise all week, just about. It will be the Discovery Enterprise. And Jack, I am not putting you off on purpose. Take a look at 1 second here. I'm back. This is Jack's prototype from his Daedalus kit that he has 3D printed. And I wanted to try 2 different things to determine what is the best course. This is the top, his original top that he made. And all I did on this was put a coat of primer filler on it and then sanded it up. And it looks okay. And this one, this half, I covered with a product from Smooth On called XTC 3D. And it's basically a real thin resin that's clear that you paint on top of 3D printed items. And what that does is it's supposed to fill in between the striations of a 3D printed object. And then I painted just a regular coat of primer on top of it. And I don't know which, pardon my lean, I don't know which is going to be the best solution, because the coating says, oh, it's going to save you so much time in sanding. But when you put it on here, it ends up kind of making your thing look like a burn victim. It puts this weird skin on everything. And you really have to go through and like poke out the windows again and things like that. So I don't know how much time it's actually saving me. But that's something worth investigating. It's something that I'm going to be working on in the upcoming weeks. I want to look around to see if I've got a lighting kit that I can use in this. If not, I may have to order something from Ralph. Because I want to build this. I want to do it right. I want to do a good job by Jack, but I also want to light it up at the same time. So that's coming down the pipe. So kind of lining up my projects for the fall. I'm going to start working on smaller things. I got to tell you, getting that D7 out of the way. That was a good intermediary between big Enterprise, smaller D7, and then I'm working on the smaller kits. I'm rambling now, and I don't mean to, so I'll just sign off and say, hey, until next week when we'll be back right at it again, you be good to each other, and we'll see you here next time.